Hello and welcome to this AutoCAD 2017 tutorial video for AutoCAD 2017. We're going to be looking today at adding dimensions to our drawing. So in a previous video we looked at the dimension style manager and we looked at creating new dimension styles and we saw that there's all these different options that we've got available to us. So for this particular video I'm going to use a dimension style that I've created before called worksheet 13, selected from there. So now that's selected to worksheet 13, all dimensions that I put on here from here until I change this option to something else will be on the worksheet 13 style. And again, you can create your own as we saw in a previous video, or you can start off just using the ISO 25, whichever you prefer to use. So for this video we'll use the worksheet 13 one. Okay, so the next thing to make sure of before I start adding my dimensions in is to make sure that I'm putting my dimensions onto the correct layer. So in this case I'm using a layer I've created called DIMS. Okay, that's the one I'm going to be using, short for dimensions. And if we look at the layer properties, we can see that DIMS is a continuous line type of 0.25 millimeter line weight, which basically means it is the smaller line weight size, and it will be half the size of the object outline. So that should look pretty smart once it's been produced. So let's get going with adding some dimensions to this drawing then. So the first thing that we're going to look at adding here, you can add dimensions from the Home tab. Obviously you can use your shortcuts in the command bar, but just to give us a better overview, if we look at the Annotate option, you can see here, if we look at the Annotate tab, that we've got lots of different headings that we can use: text, dimensions, centerlines, leaders, tables, and so on and so forth. So we can use any number of these. So if we focus here on the dimensions bar for now, there's a drop down here with some additional options that we can use, but we're not going to worry too much about those in this video. That'll be the subject of a later video. So we'll have a look at these for now. So looking at this, we've got our options here. This is kind of like a smart dimension option, so you can click on this and use this to create. As you can see there, it's starting to bring up dimensions already. It's a very good bit of kit, but I prefer always just to add mine using this option here, because it means that I know exactly what kind of dimension I'm going to get before I put it in. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with using this option. As you can see there, it should start to give us a few options. There's a radius for us, various different things that we can use, but I like to use this drop down here. These are the ones that you'll use a lot. So first things first, let's say we want to know how wide this object is going to be. So it's very important when you start placing this, because there's lots of points along this edge that we could dimension to that will give us the overall width of this. But what we want to make sure of is that the drawing looks professional when it's finished. So if we take this as being our first point, we select there, and then if I select here, as you can see, I've got a dimension there of 100 mil. You can see that with our tolerances that we've put on from a previous video. But if you look closely here, you see this extension line here that's coming down. You see that there's no gap there between the object and the extension line, and that's not great practice. So what we're going to do is, instead of dimensioning as we just saw, what we'll do now is take our linear dimension and we will dimension from here, but we'll dimension to this corner. Now, because we're using a linear dimension, it means that it will basically just give us a value straight horizontal from there to there. It won't follow the length of this orange dashed line that I've created. It will actually give us the value of the orange dashed line as it is there. So if I select there and place that down about there, you can see now that there is a clear gap between the object and the extension line. Over on this side you can see there is no gap, and that's because of the there's a very small gap when you zoom in, and that's because we had to click onto this vertical line to get that. But what you can do is just draw that down just a little bit if you wish to, and that'll create the gap as required. So you can see that still looks nice and neat, and when that's printed that will clearly be there. So that is how we add just a straight linear dimension. We can also add an aligned dimension. Now we won't actually be adding this onto this drawing, but if we were to select there and there, can you see now how the dimension is actually measuring the length of that? It's no longer giving us a value from here to here, it's giving us a value of that line there. Now as it happens, we don't really need to know what that the value of that line is at the moment, mainly because other dimensions that we're going to add will kind of control the length of that anyway, so we can get rid of that. That's just to illustrate what the aligned value is used for. And again, there's times when you will definitely need to do that, but on this drawing we won't have to worry about that too much. Now if we consider this edge here, we will need to know what the overall length of this object is, but we're not going to worry too much about that just now. What we're interested in is what about all these little bits along the way here? What are they going to dimension up as? So what we'll do is, the first thing we'll do is select the linear dimension, and we want to know what's the distance from there to there, what's that value going to be. We're just going to plonk that down there. Don't worry if it starts to look a little bit odd when you start placing these and they start to kind of clash with each other a little bit and look a bit odd. This is the beauty of using CAD, is that we can put that down there just for now, and then as we start adding other dimensions we can see what that looks like. Now a handy tool that you can use with CAD is the continue option. So I just placed a dimension here, and I wasn't paying enough attention actually, I wasn't sure which way around I selected my dimensions, but if we select continue, you can see there that it will continue to dimension from the last point that you placed. So this is now dimensioning from here to here, like that. So that's our continue option, and I can continue now to select different points and place these down, and they will continue to appear on there, which means that you can very quickly dimension up a whole side just by continuing to click there. Now I'm not going to put a dimension here. I'm going to leave that one blank for now, and that'll become clear in a moment how we're going to define the overall length of this. If I was to put a dimension there, which is currently 5mm, because this is symmetrical this side in terms of the lengths, then we might just look at this and go, alright, well we can figure out how long this will be. We've got 5, 40, 10, so that's 55, another 40 is 95, 105, 145, 150. So the overall height of this is 150mm. However, what you've got to take into account are these tolerances. If on every dimension 0.05mm is added onto each length, then by the time we get to the overall length of this, this is going to be more than 150mm. Similarly, if we put less than it, then the overall length will become less than 150mm. So what we can do is we can leave this section here, this line here, we'll leave that without a dimension on it, and what we'll do is on the other side of this drawing we will add an overall length dimension, and what that then means is that this kind of becomes a variable. This doesn't have a fixed dimension, it's just going to take up the slack or the increase or decrease in length based on how accurate these parts are actually machined for the individual piece. So that'll leave a nice option there. So that's just something to bear in mind. You don't want to over dimension your drawing, especially when you've got when you're doing connections like this, these chain dimensions, because then what happens is that you can end up making it an almost impossible object to actually create, and we don't want that to happen. So that is some chain dimensioning that we've done there. Let's see about getting some other dimensions on here. Now obviously we're interested in the positions of the centres of these holes. We've got centre marks added onto here, as you can see, which are really useful. So what we can do now is we can use another tool from up here to dimension these, because what we'll do is first of all select a linear dimension, and we'll come again from this corner up to, now you'll notice again if I click the centre of this circle and place my dimension, when we zoom in, because this extension line, as you can see, goes all the way to just off the centre, 2mm off where we selected that, it's kind of clouded out where this centre mark ends. As you can see, when I roll over it, it stops there, but you can't see that. So what we want to do is when we dimension to centre lines like that, or centre marks I should say, what we'll do is we'll select here and the end of the point there like that. And then when we plonk that down, you'll see that we leave a nice gap between the extension line and the center line, so that you can clearly see that that is a center mark, and there's no confusion over that. Again, we've got this situation down here where that's a little bit onto the drawing, so I'll just move that back to there. That's probably too far actually. I'll pop it there, and that looks quite good now. Now, as well as the continue option here, we've also got the baseline option. Okay. Now what that does when you select that is the first point that you picked on the last dimension that you placed will be taken as being a baseline to continue other dimensions on. So as you can see, it's taking it from here up to here. Just to illustrate that point, if you are going to use the baseline dimension, you need to think about the order that you're selecting your points in for your first dimension. So if I was a little bit careless and I selected that first and then that, I've got exactly the same dimension there that I had before. Or I would have if I'd not completely put that in the wrong place. So let's put that there. But now if I use the baseline option, can you see it's actually measuring off here, off this extension line, because that is the first point that I picked for this dimension. So we'll cancel that, we'll delete that. If you're going to use the baseline option, which uses one edge of the object or one feature of the object as a datum point, then what we do is we select the linear dimension tool, we'll click here and we'll click here, and we'll place our first dimension down like that. Now when we select our baseline option from up here, you can see that it's going to use this edge here as a datum, so it's going to constantly refer back to that point. So we'll pop a next one there. Now as you can see, and I'm sure that you're screaming at the screen now, that these dimensions look absolutely awful. Well, you're absolutely right, they do. So let's just finish in this dimension in this, and then we'll figure out what we can do about that. So this, if I click here now, gives me, did not want that to go there, so I'll just select that grip and pull it over and pop it down there like that instead, because that's snapped to the wrong point. So we'll change that grip to there. Sometimes quite useful when things don't work out exactly as you expect them to the first time. So you can, once the dimension's down, you can, by manipulating the grips, you can change the positions of the values of the dimensions. You can tweak them about. So I could dimension to that now, or I could dimension to that quite happily. Okay. So let's have a think about how we're going to deal with this mess here. Okay, so these dimensions here are a little bit higgledy-piggledy. They're all over each other. The dimension lines from each dimension are obscuring each other, and it just generally looks a bit of a mess. So let's figure out what we can do about this. If we select this button here, which is the adjust space, what it'll do is in the command line it says select base dimension. So we want that to be that one. That's going to be like our reference dimension, if you like. Now it's changed to select dimensions to space. So we're going to select the other dimensions that are featured on this edge here, and now we've selected all of those, hit space or enter, and enter value or auto. So if we go with auto to start with, it's already there, so we'll just hit space for enter, and it's attempted to kind of space those out nice and evenly. Okay, but you can still see that this is a little bit of a mess. So let's do the command again. There's our dimension. We'll select that as our base dimension, and then select all of those as our dimensions to space. Hit enter, and let's put in a value now. Let's put in, say, 10 mil. And as you can see, that's spaced those quite nicely off each other. They're not really obscuring or interfering with each other anymore. I would say at this point, this is a bit of an extreme example of a dimension drawing. Generally speaking, you wouldn't put this many dimensions on one face of a drawing. We'd probably have an orthographic layout, as we've covered in a previous video, and what we'd do is look at putting some of these dimensions on different objects, because this is going to be a little bit crowded by the time we finish. But again, as a demonstration piece for how to use the dimension tools, it's good enough. So let's select now, we'll go to our angular option. So let's do this. So here you can see we've got 3 different angle measurers. So when we select the angular dimension, it says select arc, circle line or specify vertex. So we select this line and this line, and you can see there that that angle is now 90 degrees. Okay. Now again, if I want to make this clear, I'm going to pop it down about there. So we may have to look at shifting these dimensions over in a minute, but that's no problem. So remember, if you want to repeat the last command, hit space for enter, and it brings up the angular dimension again. So let's pop another one here. If you want to put this on the outside, you can do that, and it'll create these extension lines for the included angle there. But on this side, that's going to look quite nice if we pop it down here. So we'll just get that nicely positioned like so. And finally, this one here. So we'll get that nicely positioned again, about there. Now these are all a little bit on top of each other now. So if we select this one and we just select that grip there and pull it over, you can see there we've kind of pulled that away from there, so it's nice and clear. And then, as with most things in CAD, we can snap to the end of that dimension line. So then we can just keep going. We can keep on just pulling all of these out and making them all line up with each other and look nice and neat. They're not all over the place, they're all lined up, and it looks pretty good. This obviously here is not as clear as it could be, so probably what we'll do here is just move that. If we move it to here, it's going to throw it off a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll drag this one down and put it down here, like so. So it's lined up with that one, which is nice, and then just drag that over to there. So that looks a lot better now. These I think are protruding a little bit far, so we'll just drag those in a bit, like so. Bring them in halfway so they're lined up again, and that's looking a lot better than it was before. Okay, so just a couple more things that we need to think about dimensioning. If we select our radius now, okay, we can dimension this radius here. So we'll pop that on there like that. It's not a good practice to have dimension lines crossing or interfering with each other, so we'll pop that on there like so. And wherever possible, try and put the dimensions on the outside of the object. As we'll see in a moment, we've got a bit of a compromise coming up, but it's best to keep them on the outside of that way you can. Now here, where we've got a situation where we've got two radii that are the same, we can actually tweak this dimension a little bit. If we double click that, it opens up the editor part, and then with the cursor just hit 2 space X, and you can see there that's changed it to 2 times of these, 2 lots of these, one here and one here, and that should be nice and self-explanatory. So again, it saves us adding a further dimension to that point. So the last thing that we need to think about dimensioning now are these circles, these holes that have been cut through this piece. So again, for this one we'll use the diameter, because if these are going to be drilled, you don't think about the radius of your drill, you think about the diameter of your drill. So it's better to use the diameter function for this. So we'll select diameter, and then we'll place that down here. Now as you can see at the moment, although we've got our angular tracking on, it's not giving us a value to track off. So what would be quite nice in this instance, because we want these dimensions to be all nicely lined up, if we go to our construction layer and keep that current layer on, what I'm going to do, these have been created in producing the drawing elsewhere, so I'm just going to delete those. And then what we'll do is we'll create construction lines. We're not actually going to create construction lines, we're just going to create lines on the construction layer, which is different. So L space, and we want this to go from the center of the circle. Just make sure we get in the center of the circle there. Again, I was just using tab to scroll through the different options. And let's make this 15 mil long, I think 15 mil long. And then what we'll do is we'll copy that. So hopefully by this stage of working with AutoCAD, you're quite familiar with using the modify tools, and if you're not, then please feel free to look at a previous video. L will just join all these up so we get them all nice and parallel, although it's not necessary because they're all the same length actually, but it doesn't hurt to double check things. So we'll select the diameter now, diameter dimension, select that circle and just plonk it there where they cross over. And same again, dimension that and plonk it there where they cross over. It's interesting that that hasn't actually snapped to where I would like it to. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a moment. So let's diameter the rest of these, dimension the rest of these, like so. And diameter that one, and diameter that one. There we go, so they're all dimensioned up. So just coming back to this dimension down here, the reason that this isn't snapping up properly is that it would make this leader here too short for it to work properly. So what we can do is we'll just do a quick fix on this. Now again, we'll just hopefully demonstrate here how quickly things can be rectified in AutoCAD. So we'll just select those and make sure we're not infringing on anything else. So let's extend this one by another, say 5mm should be acceptable, and let's copy and paste that. So let's copy that and we'll make that the base point again. We won't bother with the vertical line this time, and we will now diameter off these. So we want to diameter that. We want to diameter that, and that one, and that one, and that one. And another useful tip here is that we want to now get rid of the construction lines that are under here. I'd like to say goodbye to those. As you can see, these are all nicely lined up now, so there's no problem. So if we just select those, right click and select isolate. So well, what we'll do is we'll hide the objects, so they've all gone, but they've not been deleted, they're still there. I just want to get rid of those construction lines that I used. We could just turn the layer off, but I like to get rid of them, make sure that they're not going to cause us any problems. And then if we right click, go to isolate and end object isolation, they will reappear, because we never deleted them, we just kind of turned them off. We just sort of hid them for a moment so that we could get to the construction lines that were behind them. So there we have a fully dimensioned drawing. As we've said, this is probably a little bit over dimensioned, if anything. So I hope this video has been useful to you in terms of dimensioning. Obviously, if you have any questions or comments, then please let me know. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you'd like to see in this series, then please let me know as well. I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.